Today I'll be teaching you a brand new deck that came from the festival collection, and that was one that was highly anticipated, and that deck name is Feltyrosa. What's up guys, Zenara here, and today I'm going to be showcasing a deck profile that I've been brewing up for the last couple of weeks, and I've been doing pretty well. I finally just got recently my cards that I've ordered from festival collection, and I'm here to teach you and showcase my deck list for Feltyrosa. So without further ado, let's get it started. First, I'm going to be talking about the ride line for Feltyrosa. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm playing the starter. It doesn't matter which starter in this deck. I'm not playing Bieta, so it could be any starter if you want. First, I'm going to talk about the grade 1, and I'll explain why after I'm done talking about the grade 3 of why I'm running this line. So for the grade 1, it's very simple. When it's rolled upon, you can soul blast 1. You can choose up to 1 ghost from your drop zone to put it to your hand. And also on Vanguard Rigor Circle, if you have a ghost on your Rigor Circle, this unit gets 2 of power. So how I like to play this deck, I like to play it very aggressive if I have the pieces early game, and you're able to recover back pretty well in this deck. So her first ability to be able to just get back a ghost, it means that you can guard with PGs. If they swing it to your rear guards, you can get them back. It's just a very flexible grade 1. So that's why I play that, as well as the 10k power that she gets, 2k power that she gets on a grade 1 turn. It's very good for just aggroing out your opponent if you're going second to hurry up and close the game. So next we play the grade 2 Feltyrosa. Her skill is when she's rolled upon, you can reveal a normal unit ghost from your hand. You can place it on the top of the deck and choose a ghost unit from your drop zone and add it to hand. And the second ability is Vanguard Rigor Circle. If you have 3 or more ghosts on your Rigor Circle, this unit gets 5 power. So again, this is another like aggressive tool that you can use if you have a lot of cards and you're pretty sure that you can not take a lot of damage your next turn. This one allows you to purge your opponent even more, which I do have cards that help with that. And her auto ability allows you to set up for your grade 3 Feltyrosa turn, which we are playing the original Feltyrosa. So for the original Feltyrosa, one ability, when you dry check, reveals a normal unit ghost. You can call it to open Rigor Circle with front row. The account wants 1. Again, this will drive. It's in the end of battle. So you can get up to like 4 or 5 extra drive checks depending on which cards you play in your deck. But the main reason why I'm running this line over the Willifton line is because you're able to get back your PGs. And being able to get back your PGs in this meta, especially if you're going second, is very valuable. So if you're on grade 2, you're going to get like a hyper aggressive deck, or you need to survive your opponent's turn, you can use your PG, get it back with the grade 2 Feltyrosa, and you're able to have another chance of being able to use that PG. Over the Willifton line, also there are cards that don't activate, like your grade 1 from the festival collection. Since you're not on a Feltyrosa Vanguard, you can't use their effect to draw extra cards, and so on and so forth. It just makes it so much more aggressive, and you're able to consistently gain hand on your grade 3 turn as well. Since this Feltyrosa is free to get extra attacks, you call cards that are able to plus you or able to give you more attacks while needing the counter blast in the first place during the main phase. So that's why I'm running the Feltyrosa ride line in this deck. Now let's go on to the grade 3s. For the grade 3s, I'm running, of course, the new Feltyrosa in the main deck. So I'll explain her abilities. She has the dress up mechanic, meaning that she counts as the original Evertine Feltyrosa in the deck. Her continuous ability, if you have a grade 3 Feltyrosa in your soul, all your ghosts in the front row get 10 of power. So it's like a persona ride for your ghosts. And her act ability, you count +1 to the end of turn. When you reveal a normal unit ghost or a grade 3 card with Feltyrosa, you may call that card to open Rigor Circle, and you get drive +1, and this activates twice. So you're capped at 4 drive checks maximum. Even if you do call another card and it goes away during that call, you're still capped at 4. However, the trade-off for that is that if you persona ride on top of Evertine, you're able to give 20k to your ghost to the front row, so that's nearly double persona. As well as if you call extra Felties, They also they don't get the power, but you're able to just get that next 10k power for the Persona ride. So this is a nice card to be able to push out the game, as well as being able to Persona after that. Since you scale a lot, your ghosts scale a lot after you Persona ride. So it makes it very, very threatening for your opponent to guard all your attacks, especially since we've got new cards that are able to increase that consistency of drawing into this card and just outputting a lot of power. There are a lot of cases where you can hit up to like 48k, 50k, and that's before triggers, just because of how the ghosts work in the deck. Next, for the grade 1s, I play an extra copy of Feltyrosa. This is just a failsafe if I don't somehow get the new Feltyrosa. So just extra Persona ride, as well as another target for to call off Feltyrosa. If like I'm desperate, I need an extra attack, I can always just call her for 23k. Lastly, for the grade 3s, we're playing for Ingrid, a card from set 1, which is very vital and very important in this deck. So she has 2 abilities. When this unit is placed on Rigor Circle other than from hand, you can countercharge 1 and choose one of your Rigors in the same column as this unit stand it. And her second ability, auto when this unit attacks. If this unit gets 5,000 power to the end of that battle, and at the end of battle, put this unit at the bottom of your deck. This is mandatory. So she's automatically a 20k attacker, but she is also the deck's resource of countercharge, and is very, very free. This card is really free. However, it is a guarantee -1 since she doesn't stay on the field unless you don't attack with her. This card is very, very good. Obviously, it's been good since set 1. It's seen play in other decks like Kyrie and sometimes even Medio and stuff. But Ingrid is just a very nice way to get your resources back, to be able to extend your counterblast uses, and able to restand your rear guard in the back row I just already boosted. So Ingrid is very integral in this deck as well. Now on to the grade 2s. We have the new card from Festival Collection, Rose Wiffa. So she has 2 abilities. When this unit is placed other than from hand, if you have a Vanguard Feltyrosa in this card name, stand all regards in the same column as this unit, and this unit gets 5 power to end of the turn. And the second ability is auto. When this unit attacks, you may have this unit get 5,000 power to the end of that battle. If you do, at the end of that battle, put this unit at the bottom of your deck. So Rose Wiffa increases the ceiling and consistency of you getting more attacks. I mean, the ceiling of you clearing your Rigor Circle, and also power, since she can become a 20k attacker by herself, which is greater than Ingrid. At minimum, she could be a 15k, since you may use her effect to get the 5,000 power. As well as you can call on turn 2 and just like have an attacker and not use the 5k power to bot deck herself. So that means you can just call her early game to have a bit of aggro. Your opponent might get rid of it, but also you play cards that can just call from drop zone, or you can just re-get her back from your Feltyrosa ride line. So this card is really amazing. It is basically another Ingrid, but it has more power, which the deck honestly needed. There was a lot of ways that you couldn't like remove all your regards in the front row at some time. So this is just a nice little consistency buff, and I really appreciate it. Next card we have is Dealine. This is a set 2 card, a very important staple, I will say, in that as a part of the Feltyrosa deck. So she has 2 abilities. Auto when this unit is placed. If you have Evertine Feltyrosa, this also affects your new Feltyrosa as well, since she has the Dress ability. Your Vanguard Circle, you can Soul Boss 1. Choose up to 1 ghost normal unit not named herself, and you can call it to Rigor Circle. For a drop, they call it to open Rigor Circle, and at the end of the battle, when this unit attacked, put this unit at the bottom of your deck. This is mandatory. So she's a 4 self clear, but she gives you a main phase plus from drop, and so it's equal to a wash. Dealine is a very important card because you're able to call all those ghosts that you discarded, or you discarded for ride line, or just had to pitch to guard. And you can actually use it in an aggressive way during your battle phase, or a way to build board. So this even works during your main phase, because you're able to just call a card from your drop zone. It's very, very strong. It's one of the main reasons why in my last video with Feltyrosa, I was able to actually like survive and beat some of these decks, is because I had this card and other cards. I drew a bunch of cards and was able to still aggro at the same time. So Dealing is a very important card in this deck. Lastly, for the grade 2s, I play probably one of my favorite cards, Hellwing, in the deck. So she's at a 3 of. She has one sub ability. When this unit is placed during your battle phase, put this unit into your soul, draw a card. So there's a lot of reasons why I play this card in the deck. One, she doesn't remove herself, so this is kind of good early game where you could just call her down as a 10k body just to rush and fulfill your grade 2 Feltyrosa's ability. Her ability to be put into soul during your battle phase, she still opens up a Rigor Circle. So on your grade 3 turn with the original Feltyrosa, you're able to put it to your soul. You get more dry checks and basically convert her into a card of hand. Plus you add cards in soul for other cards you play in this deck for Dealing. She combos really well with Dealing because you're able to essentially take her from drop zone, put in your soul, draw a card. So you're plussing, you're basically plussing the card that you called from Dealing to your hand. And you're able to just get a lot of cards in value just from playing her in the deck. As for power, she is a bit weird on a new Feltyrosa, as in you have to decide, do you want to call this card or just add it to hand? Most of the time I'll just call it just to have an attacker, but it's really up to the situation what you really need in that. So you don't have to play this card, but this is just a card that I found has been very successful for me in my play testing. Now on to the grade 1s. We're playing the new grade 1 from Festival Collection, Orfrude. Simply one ability, auto. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted. If you have Vanguard or Feltyrosa in this card name, Cameras 1, and put another Rigard in the same column as this unit into your soul and draw a card. Orfrude is a card that we absolutely needed. A way to clear the front row if they cannot clear themselves. She does it for a counterblast, however, she adds a card in the soul and she draws a card. So she basically replaces the card that you put into your soul, which helps out a lot. Again, like with cards such as like your grade 1s that can't do it. So if you have a card in our Ortrude, she can put any card into the soul. So if you're playing the new Feltyrosa on your Vanguard circle for your Ride line, you can easily put another Feltyrosa from your grade 3 turn into it. Or just do this early game if you have other ways of calling Feltyrosa. But the main draw for her is that she's able to draw cards and add cards into your soul, which helps out a lot. And also, this deck doesn't use as much counterblast since you can use Ingrid in it. Your counterblasts are mainly coming from just Feltyrosa as well. So most of your counterblast is being synced into this one card, which is for resources and drawing, which is really amazing. Next, for the grade 1s, I'm playing another favorite card of mine, Angelama. So she has one ability, backward Rigor Circle. When your other unit is placed on Rigor Circle during your battle phase, so watch 2, draw a card. So with Ortrude, Hellwing, and other cards that might go into soul. If this card is in your back row, usually I place her behind Vanguard Circle. You're able to just plus a card to your hand, which is really nice. It is once a turn though, and you have to be aware of your soul when you're on the new Feltyrosa, so you don't accidentally soul blast a Feltyrosa. That hasn't happened to me, but there are some times where if you're not paying attention, you might accidentally soul blast it, so you have to be aware of that. As well as, this is a card you can just toss down behind your Vanguard early game, unless you're playing against a retire heavy matchup or something against like Messiah that might lock her in the back row. She's just a very nice card to be able to, again, like help you negate the minuses you are doing with your grade 2, your grade 2s and Ingrid and other cards as well. So that's why I play her as a 2 of. Lastly, probably the most important grade 1 are your PGs, and we're playing Judith. I'm not playing Sanctitude because it is not a ghost. That is the only reason why. So if I go against any decks that have like a weird guard restrict, or against Chronojet or any Sun restrict, I I would just have to eat that. But Judith being a ghost allows you to just basically PG multiple times compared to other decks. So if you need a PG on your grade 1, you can just return it back to hand. PG on your grade 2, return it back to hand. And then you still have more value with that. You are negating a lot of cards from your hand. However, if it allows you to survive and win the game, it allows you to survive and win the game. So that's what we were playing, Judith. Now on to the triggers, not much to say. We're playing 4 of the Ghost Heal trigger. She's a ghost simply. You could play the effect heals, but I could prefer the ghost consistency for your Ride line. If you have to discard a trigger, you can just get it right back. Next, we're playing 4 of the effect draw. Simply, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets 5,000 shield. A very good card. Just and it's a draw trigger, so this deck really negs because you have to remove your rear guards. You need a way to replace that. Checking a draw on your dry check if your opponent PGs is not as bad as checking a crit, because you're adding cards to your hand and they're losing more cards than you. So it's not bad to have this in your deck. Next, I'm playing 2 extra draw draw triggers. She is a ghost, so I can discard and add it back. You can call it early game. If you draw into it, you just need another ghost name for your condition, for your Feltyrosas. As well as this deck, of course, you still neg a lot. Even if you don't think you are still negging. So you still want to have some ways to adding cards to hand. And yeah, that's basically the reason why. If you don't want the extra draw triggers, you can always remove them. Next, we are playing 4 of the ghost critical triggers. Self-explanatory. This is a ghost crit. You can add it back from your Ride line. I wouldn't call it down early game, but simply they're just crits. We have one other crit that isn't a ghost one. If she was a ghost, I would play it, but we don't have any more ghost crits. And yeah, lastly, we're playing the lyrical over trigger, just because if you drive check this early, it makes all of your rear guards really big, especially if you persona ride with the new Felty. You're hitting absurd numbers, and you drive check a lot in this deck. So if you do check it, it's more of a plus to you. I wouldn't play like the red over trigger because there isn't any rear guard for you to make restand, and you call in a card from hand. Is it as strong in this deck unless you're on persona ride with the new Feltyrosa? The blue over trigger could help in some situations, but then again, if you don't have any units to give a crit on and your opponent PG'd, you're basically not getting the full effect of the over trigger, other than just drawing a card for the over trigger and getting a card from your drop zone. So the lyrical OT provides you with so much more value in shield and numbers just throughout the game. And if the game lasts longer, the more the OT is effective. Now I'm going to be going over some combos and some interactions that you should know about when playing Feltyrosa, and things to watch out for when conducting returns with this deck. First off, before we get to the combos, I want to talk about what is important for you to draw on your opening hand, starting with the most important cards. First off, we have, of course, Feltyrosa herself and your PG. I feel like these two are equal when it comes in terms of power, because you want your PG to be able to survive your opponent's early game, or if you're going second, to be able to PG their Vanguard, or you're able to get it back. So, and Feltyrosa, because when you persona ride, your front row, other than Felty herself, is getting 20k. And that is very strong in this deck as well, to be able to just push and close out the game for your opponent. The next important card I feel like is D-Lean. If you have her open hand, that is good as well, because you're able to combo cards like Hellwing. And these two are probably like second what I look for when it comes to just having it in my opening hand, because I'm able to call this for early game. And she sets up my grade 3 drive checks for Feltyrosa. And probably lastly is just Orfrud. Every other card that I draw after that, it doesn't really matter to me. Just because Orfru is able to just be caught out on grade 1. And they will probably attack into it, which is fine because you could just get it back with your grade 1. Feltyrosa, and you're saving cards in your hand. They might deny you of your counter blast to draw, but that is fine because you will be using that way later in the game. And as well as like your other cards in your deck are more of combo pieces, if anything else. These two do combo, but it's more like you have to set up on your turn 2, or you just draw into this. You could discard it for Ryline, get something else like a trigger or something, and use Dealine to be able to plus you during your battle phase. So out of the most importance, you will want Feltyrosa in the PG. After that, Dealine. If you have Hellwing, I would still keep it in hand sometimes, just depending on the matchup, because you're able to just early game aggro, unless you're playing something against like Messiah or Chronojet. If you're going first, this won't even be on your rigor circle at all. It is only if you're going second that you need to pay attention, because they can Bob deck this or just use their skills to clear it off the field if they have those cards. And Orfru is just a very good early game aggro piece, as well as being able to draw. So with that being said, I'm going to go to doing each turn by turn, what cards you would like to play, and how you can conduct your turns. So on your first grade 1 turn, you already discarded your card. Let's say it was just Angelama in your hand that you discarded. I'll place right here. And you open with Ortrude. So what I would do, I normally, if I'm going second, I would just call it to the front row. Now this Feltyrosa has 2k extra more power, so she's a 10k. And if you have something like an extra draw trigger, something like an extra draw trigger, you can just place it in the back row. And now this lane is 15. And or if you had Angelama, like an extra one, like the one I just discarded, you could call it here, or mostly I'll just put it behind the Vanguard. And with that, I'm able to just like early game rush. I usually just swing with the Vanguard first, and then I'll swing with this. Swing with the Vanguard first does create that pressure to at least getting one hit, and if they don't get a trigger you do, it just helps you out even more. That's why I play draws as well, because you're able to still hit over the Vanguard with this, and you're adding a card to your hand. So the first turn of the game, if I'm going second, I will usually try to, if I have an Orfruit, I will usually try to call it down just to aggro. Now, if you're going first, you don't really do anything. You just kind of just ride up and pass turn. There's no point of calling Orfruit if you can't attack on your first turn. So we'll go to the grade 2 turn. So on your grade 2 turn, a couple things can happen. So if you didn't, so let's say if you went first, you could have a Orfruit. I'll usually just place in the back row. If you have the necessary cards to turn 2 aggro, this is why I like putting Hellwing in the same deck. You can place it right here. And you have like an Angelama or another grade 1 that isn't Orfruit. You do not want this behind your Vanguard circle because you cannot trigger the skill. This is only on your other 2 columns. So you have the 3 ghosts fulfilled. This is 21. That's very difficult to guard. This is 18. If you're going again, if you went first, this is very difficult to guard as well. Even if they do hit a trigger, they still have to commit a 5k shield in your hand. And as well as if you have Rose Wiffa, you don't have to call it, but in the same column as where Orchard is, it's 23, which is still a pretty high number to guard, even if your opponent's on grade 1. So if you have the extra counter blast, if you went second, no, if you went first, yeah, sorry, if you went first, you can put this into your soul and combo off with Dealing later. But that is totally up to you what you do in this situation. But ideally, I'll call all my Hellwings on this turn, because you can also intercept with it and get value with it later, so you don't lose any value with that. Now, in cases where you don't have anything to call, you know, you just ride and swing with your Vanguard, it's perfectly okay to just not have anything to call during that turn, and just save it for your grade 3 turn, which where most of your plussing and combos will come into play. So we'll go into our grade 3 Feltyrosa turn. So now we're on our grade 3 turn. It doesn't matter if you're going first or second because all the same ideal gameplay is the same. So if you had a Hellwing in your drop zone, that's already in your drop zone, so I'll place it right here. We use our grade 2 Felty skill, so we're going to reveal this, place at the top of the deck, and then we're going to get back a ghost. Let's say we discard an Ingrid, we just add it to hand. Now, if we have extra counterblast, I won't use Orfrude in this case because you will draw into your dealing, which you need to be wary about. So let me just set up a board here. I'll just call Angelama. Let's say we have the soul needed for that, and we just call a Ingrid. So Ingrid's skill, we'll swing. This will hit a nice number. This will go to the bottom of the deck. And then if we have another rear guard, we'll attack with that to go to the bottom deck. Feltyrosa will attack, and then her skill should reveal the top part of your deck, which you already showed that it was a dealing. And now with that effect, you counterblast 1 for Feltyrosa. Then with dealing skill, you soul blast 1. You call Hellwing, and with Hellwing skill, you go into soul, you draw a card. And if you, I'm pretty sure at this point you should have some cards in your soul, so you can use this skill. You can soul blast. I wouldn't soul blast Hellwing. I would just soul blast the other 2 Feltyrosas in your drop zone, and you draw extra card. So that's how the combo I usually do with this deck goes. You get a lot of hand because you're plusing from this, and you're also getting a card from dealing as well. And if you check another dealing, you're able to soul blast out this Hellwing. It goes to drop zone, and then you call it back again to any open rigor circle. It can even be in the back row. And then once that happens, she goes into soul, and you can draw a card. So you just keep repeating that. You're trying to dig for other Feltyrosas in your deck, or just any EPGs. So your grade 3 turn, this will be devastating. So now we're done with the grade 3 turn. This is just basically what I do. Whenever I start my grade 3 turn off with Feltyrosa. Any other cards you call during this, like if you called Rose Woofa, you can stand this. You won't get the counter charge. You're able to attack with this and put it into your soul to draw a card, which is really nice. You keep this protecting your deck because if you get another Dealine, you're able to call it, and so on and so forth. It just makes the deck run really smoothly, and you're able to just being able to put out a nice amount of pressure without having to extend a lot of cards from your hand. So this is why, again, I play Angelama, I play Hellwing to be able to draw cards, and Orfrude is a new card, but she also replaces the card you just called. So with that, we're going to go to the new Feltyrosa's grade 3 turn on Persona Ride. Now we are on Persona Ride with our grade 3 Feltyrosa, which I'm showing you right now. We have Persona Road, and this is in your soul. So Feltyrosa herself is 23, but the front row is 20k, which is really massive. So usually in this turn, I always start off with counterblasting so I don't forget, because it is an axe skill and you can't forget. It happened once. I felt bad. And just remember to always counterblast if you have it available. So again, let's say this is your board from last turn, or you have some other combination of cards that you like to play. Usually it's the same as a grade 3 Feltyrosa turn. You just call your attackers. They go to bomb the deck. They remove themselves. You attack with Feltyrosa, and then if you check normal unit ghosts, you can call them. And usually when calling cards, you want to optimize yourself so that Rose Wiffa and Ingrid can restand a unit in the back row. So sometimes in this case, if I had like another booster like Orfrude right here, it's okay if I call Dealing. She won't restand a rear guard, and I wouldn't use the skill right here to be able to like call something from drop zone. Unless I had Hellwing in my drop zone or in soul, I would do that, but not like calling Ingrid to restand, because you're losing extra pressure by doing that, and your rear guard circle is full. However, the new Feltyrosa can call in the back row, so if you didn't have Orchard right here, you could potentially call Ingrid right here to countercharge. You won't get the stand, but you can countercharge one. Or you can just call or Fruit or something from your drop zone to plus even further. So it's up to you how you conduct your turn. But most likely you don't want to just call to the front row with dealing during your Persona Ride turn, or just on your Felty turn overall, unless it's the last card in your deck, the last drive check that you checked, and you feel like you're not going to get any more. So it's very important for you to remember your how many triggers that you drove check, and how many triggers are left in your deck, so you can sort of calculate, can I get a Feltyrosa? Can I get a Ghost normal unit? And in cases where you draw a PG from your drive check, unless you feel like you can't win the game next turn, even if you had it, I would just call it, like, as an attacker or a booster if you need to. There are some cases where you do check it. You will just have to pass up that chance of getting an extra attack, which is a hard decision. But again, this deck is built to kind of be aggro early game. And with that early game aggro, your opponent will most likely be at like a 2 damage, or sometimes even 3 or higher if you have necessary cards. And you should be able to push them to 5 or even close game on your Persona Ride turn, since you draw a hefty amount, and you're able to reuse your PGs from the early game. So the only downside of this sort of deck is that if you don't draw Feltyrosa or just don't have Persona Ride, the deck doesn't really do much. You still, it's like you're playing old Feltyrosa, but just without the Persona Ride. So now, with that being said, I am going to talk about some of the thoughts I have for this deck and what you could do to improve on it if you wish. Overall, I think Feltyrosa is a very fun deck. She does have a better ceiling now, and her floor is a bit more consistent. However, it is still a drive check based deck, so you can still whiff your drive checks, and you can still draw double triggers when you don't want to. Until we get more cards that stack themselves, like Eleanor, or just a more consistent way to do that without having to use so much of your resources, that will still be the nature of Feltyrosa. Now, like I alluded to before at the beginning of the video, you could play the Ballista Ride line. It is still a viable strategy to just put your Feltyrosa into Soul to have 10k in the front row. Most of my testing, whenever I did that, even before, like during her reveal, I was not a fan of it, just because you lose access to your ride line that allows you to have that early game aggression without being totally punished for rushing, other than your opponent hitting a trigger. Because most people can just swing into your rear guards, and you would just lose that rear guard forever, unless you can call them, which Feltyrosa just gets them right back. Well, in this case, you're able to draw a lot more in your early game. You can still probably play an aggressive deck as well, or just combine your grade 1 with the grade 2 grade 1 Ballista with grade 2 Feltyrosa to be able to guarantee your deck. However, I just feel like it's a greedy sort of play that you won't be able to get back your hand afterwards, unless you're playing like some sort of similar line I am with Angelama and Hellwing, but it's most consistent if you just play the Feltyrosa Ride line. As the cards as to why I'm not playing Eleanor, Eleanor is a nice card. The thing is, you just use so much soul in this deck because Angelama adds a card to hand. Eleanor does help you with your drive checks to be able to get a ghost, so you can start getting pop off and get the extra drive check. So it kind of converts the same way. However, I feel like Angelama does it for a much consistent cost, just because Angelama is able to add a card that isn't from a drive check, other than you. Well, on your grade 3 turn with Feltyrosa, you have to use the Soul Blast 2 before you Caller back again and using both of them in the same deck, or just trying to get an extra drive check. I feel like Angelama is just cheaper. Besides, I can call Angelama on my grade 1 turn and still be able to push out pressure regardless. I can even call her to the front row with Orfrude to be able to put more pressure on my opponent. Other ghosts, I tried many other ghosts. They just don't work as consistent, or they're just not as good as these ones. Can you play the deck without dealing? It's possible, but dealing increases your consistency and ceiling of just having the ghost you need and getting the cards that you need in your hand. So unfortunately, if you do not have dealing, the deck won't be as strong. However, it is possible to play without her. And with that being said, that is all for the deck premiere. I think I'm going to start trying to do these more often by doing a deck list, mulligan, possible strategies, and probably additional cards in the future that you can play. But I'm glad I was able to finally get the cards I wanted for this deck. I've been wanting to build it and showcase it for such a long time. I'm glad that you all were patient with me in my almost 1 month hiatus, but I am back and I am willing to make more videos. So if you like the video, like, subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Peace.